Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. This is the Thrive Bites podcast, and welcome to season 5. Here we talk about 3 things: plant-powered living, enhancing emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And I interview the most passionate guests here, ranging from physicians to coaches to dietitians to entrepreneurs. And my hope is to give you really informative and high-valued conversations. So please follow us here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and wherever you hear your podcasts. Come on in, and I can't wait to see you inside. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites. I am here with Jeanell Greene. She is a relationship and marriage coach. Wonderful person and guest speaker for today. And we dive deep into the nuances of relationships and marriage. And she, shares with us her personal journey, her relationship journey, and how that has culminated into the work that she does. And that's taking on marriage clients from all walks of life. And she guides them on a step-by-step process to be able to enhance their relationship and connection between the two. And it's a wonderful episode. I think you're going to get a lot of wisdom and pearls and nuggets from this. So please join us, and I'll see you in the episode. Okay, guys. Well, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites podcast. And thank you so much for joining here with us. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and you could have been anywhere in the world, and you've decided to spend a few moments with us. And I am gratefully appreciative. Gratefully, that's redundant, isn't it? So I have a lovely guest for today. I am looking forward to this session, and we're going to talk all about relationships, marriage, something that everyone can relate to, unless, we're just a hermit in the woods. I don't know. Maybe, we do talk about self-care. So my next guest, her name is Jeanell Greene, and she is a relationship and marriage coach, and she is on a mission to save marriages and heal families to bring more love to the world. And, she has lots of accolades, a lot of hats that she wears, but her overall goal is to unite these concepts, these entities, these groups of people, as well as our individuals, to bring us closer to ourselves, to be of better service to each other. And that's in regards with connections, relationships, and marriage. So without further ado, please welcome Jeanell Greene. Hello.
Hello. That was such a great intro. Thank you.
We have to, do something on the fly for a second. So
I love it.
But yes, thank you so much. We were talking a little bit, outside, offline a little bit. And I know that you are currently on vacation. So number one, thank you so much for taking a time out, to spend a few moments, with us. Where are you originally from, and where are you currently calling from?
Yeah, well, I'm originally from just outside of Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And that's about, for those of you that don't know the West Coast well, that's about 20 minutes just north of Seattle, or from the border, the U.S. border. And I'm about 20 minutes from the Pacific Ocean. So Ooh. I'm in a very beautiful location. And right now I'm in wine country, which is about 5 hours northeast from Vancouver. So there's about 200 wineries where I am, and I'm actually staying at a spa resort for my 10-year wedding anniversary with my incredible husband, who I asked to leave for an hour so that I could do this podcast. But we are here just taking some downtime. It's being an entrepreneur is you don't get a lot of breaks, and so it's been nice to be here. We're actually going home tomorrow, so it's been a nice. I've probably been spending about 4 hours at the spa every single day since I got here, and catching up on my sleep. So it's been great, and I'm happy to be here.
We're going to talk a lot about, self-care. Just right off the bat, what is your go-to, favorite mode of self-care for yourself when you do have, that time? As a physician entrepreneur myself, I totally agree with the fact that we don't get a lot of downtime because you're hustling. You're just trying to do all the different things that, you want to put your love and passion into, right? So you don't really get that time. And when you do, you just soak it in. So what is your favorite mode of self-care?
I probably have, I would say 3 or 4. One of them is definitely music. I'm a singer and I'm a musician. So I think I love listening to Christian rock. Sometimes when I feel uncertain about my direction, or I'm just experiencing a little bit of heartbreak, this line of work can get really sad and heartbreaking sometimes, listening to people's stories, especially when I know I can't help them and it's too late. So getting connected to my spirit and, why I do what I do. Oh, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it.
We love it. We love it. We love all kinds of emotions here.
Yeah. I find I think one of the struggles I have is not getting sucked into the drama of it all, because it can be very heavy sometimes, which is why, life coach, I also do the life coaching piece to kind of balance that out. But to your question, yeah, I sing, I play the piano, I do yoga, love yoga. I've been really getting into breath work lately and just really getting into my body, because I think, we spend so much time here thinking, comparing, contemplating, worrying, anxiety. And I think just getting back into our body and just remembering this, right? And this is really important in those times when life just starts to sort of take us down this dark hole that sometimes we have a really hard time getting out of.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think just being with people that love you, right? People that inspire you. Being with my husband, being with my dog, with family, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, thank you. Those are very, very important parts to connect. And, in a way, they kind of, when you do them well enough, I don't know if you agree or not, but if you do them well enough, they actually do help you be of better service to your clients, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. You got to make sure that your tank, your self-care tank is full, because then you don't actually have anything to give other people. And I think a lot of, especially women, we're so great at giving, but we're not great at receiving. And that's what's required for us to continue doing what we do. And it's not even just about the doing, it's who are we being when we're doing the things that we do? Because if we're not doing it from a place of love, rather from a place of obligation, it doesn't feel good, right? And then we run out of gas, and then we burn out, and then we're no good to anybody.
Yeah, I would even go a step further, as opposed to coming from a place of love. A lot of people operate from, fear, obligation, guilt, shame, anger, resentment. I kind of feel like they all, stem from the same tree that is fear, right?
Absolutely.
And yes, we can go. Yeah.
I was going to say, that's perfect you said that, because, I tell people, I don't think that hatred is what is the opposite of fear. I mean, of love. I think fear is the opposite of love. Because hatred is from fear. If we really think about it.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. It's a branch off of, that gigantic root, what I'm saying? So, so before we go deeper, I would love to orient the audience, in terms of the origin story, right? So you're not a therapist, you're a coach, and you go into these, big areas, that is relationships and marriage, something that all human beings, on this planet can relate to. What motivated you, to go down that pathway? Did you wake up one day? Like what was the what was the mile markers along your life that said like, hey, I want to do this professionally, possibly for the rest of my life?
Yeah. Well, if you met me 5 years ago, who I was a 6-figure earner, selling software, getting free trips. I want a free trip to Bermuda. I want a free trip to Rome. Like, I was living an amazing life, but there was just something missing. And it felt like a rumble in my soul. And I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew it was there. And so I spent about a year really just kind of checking that out. And so happens that I got headhunted from a company that I was really happy at, like it was comfy, cozy. I got headhunted into a new company that was offering me significantly more amount of money. And going into this new company was not a great move. I mean, it was a great move because it pushed me into becoming a coach and where I am now, but it was not a great experience. And that restlessness got even louder and stronger. And I really started to feel like a fake. Like, why am I even here? I'm here because of the paycheck. I'm not here because I love this job. I'm not here because I care about what I do. I'm doing it because I said yes and I need money to pay bills. But I just thought wow, how inauthentic is that? And also knowing who I am and the capacity and the ability to love that I have, I really got that I was not using 100% of the God-given gift I was given. I was using like 5%. And I kind of pictured, this was kind of around my 40th birthday. And I was kind of, I was picturing the end of my life. And, I'm Catholic. So, I'm picturing myself at the end of my life standing at the pearly gates of heaven. And St. Peter says to me, Jeanell, what did you do with your life? And that got me really thinking. I'm like, what would I say? And what would be my legacy that I would leave on this planet? And I really got that being a great salesperson was not how I wanted to leave this earth. And so I quit. I just woke up one morning. I said to my husband, babe, I'm quitting. And he's like, are you sure about that? I'm like, yeah, I'm just so unhappy. And so I went on about a 6-month sabbatical and I just checked out and just really focused on figuring out who do I actually want to be if I could redo my life again, or even just thinking about the end result, like who would I want to be remembered as? And I wanted to be remembered as someone who made a difference for people in the realm of just life. And then, so I went on my own personal journey to create everything that I wanted. And one of the things that, you guys don't know about me is that, I've also gone through divorce. And so I'm really looking at all of these life experiences that I've had. And I ask myself, how can I take everything that I've ever gone through in my life and serve people? So one of the things that did happen to me, which was actually a big piece of why I do what I do, when I was 9, my dad cheated on my mom with my mom's best friend, who lived in our basement, and they had a baby, and he left. And I remember standing, in the window, watching my dad go down the stairs and into this car that I didn't recognize, and realize the thought that went through my mind was, I can't trust anybody. And I'm not lovable, because if I was lovable, my dad wouldn't be leaving right now, because I was a daddy's girl. And I also made up that I can't trust men. And so as I was going through my divorce and really just trying to figure out what I needed to change within myself, I realized that old story with my dad was showing up again. And it was showing up in the relationships and the men that I was choosing and the relationships I chose to be in, and also the type of behavior and treatment that I was okay with, because I didn't think I deserved to have the great guy. I thought I had to settle. And so it's been a 20-year journey. And so, and then as far as the relationship coaching piece, so here I got my certification and I'm like, okay, like, what do I want to do? Who do I want to help? And someone asked me, what is it that people come to you for just naturally? What is the question that everybody wants to know? I was like, oh, that's easy. People want to know, how do I have that kind of relationship? Meaning my relationship with being my husband. So I decided that, oh my goodness, if I could talk about that all day, all night, that would be amazing. And I think it's really about bringing hope, accountability, and empowerment to people in their relationships.
Yeah, so there's a lot to comment and unpack in there. I know, I love it. I love it. And so what really resonated with me was how you were able to take that point in your life, being that, your childhood, watching your dad go down the steps, going into a car that you didn't recognize, witnessing, an affair, leaving you and your mom, and then taking that kind of trauma, that narrative, that story, and then using that to kind of, unlearn certain, behavior, patterns, or, unlearn certain, talks, and to kind of not just, use that to, and you can probably elaborate, to apply that to your current relationship, but also to kind of, help your clients and stuff. I guess my question is, leading from that is, were these light bulb moments and realizations and the fact that you decided to do this more professionally, did this happen, but during the first marriage, or did this happen like more so in the second marriage?
The realizations happened in the first marriage. Well, okay, let me take a step back. So what is kind of the flipping point for me was that, my husband and my ex and I were, not doing great. And we got introduced to this course called the Landmark Forum. And it was really about, changing your mindset and really getting responsible and empowerment, self-development stuff. And I thought, and I poked my ex and I said, you need to go do this. We need to go and fix you. Because I had it, but it was his fault that we weren't having this great relationship.
Yeah, like, I'm fine. You're something wrong with you.
Yeah. And this is what all my clients come to me with. They're like, what do you mean I have to take responsibility? But I'm not the problem. They're the problem. So, I go into this course and the light bulb starts to go off of like, wow, I actually haven't taken responsibility for this relationship. I had certain expectations about how this marriage should go. And because it wasn't going that way, I was just killing off any love and intimacy and connection with this man. Because I'm like, you're all wrong. We need to fix you. And it wasn't great. And so at the end of the course, I really got that, you know what? You are actually really great just the way you are. And I'm so sorry that I've been blaming you and judging you. Mm-hmm. And you know what? You're great the way you are. There's nothing wrong. And it's not what I want. And so instead of this divorce being this crazy, tumultuous, dramatic thing, which definitely would have gone that way, we ended up going to the divorce courts or to the law courts together. We signed the papers together. We even went out for dinner afterwards. We had no lawyers. I think our divorce costed like $80.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah, well, we didn't have property. We didn't have kids yet. We had been only married about 2 or 3 years at this point.
Okay.
So it was, as long as we weren't fighting over anything, it was like a simple, just like, yep, sign the papers, done. And we went out for dinner, and then he dropped me off at my house. I turned to him, I gave him a kiss on the cheek, and I said, good luck. And that was it.
Wow. Okay. Even more to unpack there. I mean, that to me, like most people, when they think of divorce, I've, knocking on wood, have not, witnessed a divorce, in terms of my own parents, know plenty of people, that are the children of divorce and know how it affects them. Right. I don't think it's anyone's wish to witness or go through a divorce, themselves, or even just go through a really, really bad, breakup. Right. So there's a lot of, things to it. And, I'm not the relationship or marriage coach here. But I guess, as you were coming out of that, was there communication, between you and your first husband in terms of like, because before you went on to that Landmark Forum or, this retreat, I'm just going to call it a retreat, sure. And then you had certain expectations, right? So did these expectations of how you thought the relationship and marriage would work, was that communicated to your partner at the time?
I'd like to say yes, but I think who I am now and who I was back then is so different, and I think thinking about my clients now, we, especially women, we have this like, you should, men, you should you should be able to read our minds. Yes. Right? So I don't recall, I think a lot of women think that we communicate it, but it's more just in our heads, and it's not actually coming out of our mouth. And not only that, but a lot of times when we communicate how we feel, if we don't come at it in a particular way, the other person can't hear it because they're so busy defending themselves, like emotionally, from being rejected. So I think that's a lot of what these couples deal with is that they're like, yeah, but I said it. It's like, yeah, but how did you say it? Did you come from a place of blame? Because if you did, I guarantee you all they heard was that you don't love me. I'm not good enough. I'm being rejected. I'm being abandoned. You know, like they can't actually hear what's being said. So that's a great question.
So for your current partner, you know, obviously it's a brand new person, different life path they've led, different relationship experiences, or maybe they come from a previous, you know, marriage. So obviously there's those variables, right? But in terms of you're the common denominator between your past marriage and your current marriage, right? So my question to you is, you know, what is, and I promise we're going to go more into you coaching clients, but this is important, right? You know, this is so important. You know, what has been different that you brought from the old, you know, previous marriage, what you've learned in between to, you know, like to reflect what has been different for this current marriage that you're in?
Yeah. Well, let me just, there's so many layers to this. The first thing I would say is, you know, looking back, I think I got married for the wrong reasons. You know, being Filipino, there's a lot of pressure to get married early. And, you know, my mom had me at 24. And I remember being 24 and going, oh my gosh, like TikTok, gotta get married, you know? And, you know, here comes this man who like promised me the world and the white picket fence. And I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get another chance at this. And again, remember at that time, my mind was like, I'm no good. Nobody loves me. I don't know if I'll ever find love. And so I thought, well, you know, I might as well take this offer because I don't know if I'm ever going to get an offer ever again. Right. You know? And I had this sort of mentality that I can fix this. I can work with this. I just need to change this to change this. Right? Going into my second marriage, I got very clear for myself what it is I wanted and why. Whereas I feel like the first time around, it was more like a checklist. Does he have a good job? Is he good looking? Are the parents, you know, nice? There was just this very superficial kind of checklist that I had. And I feel like the second time around, I got really clear about what about my parents' relationship when things were great that I wanted for myself. And I also want to add that my parents actually got back together again. So after 4 years, after my dad left to live with his other family, he came back. He got sick. He got diagnosed with double renal failure and was put on a transplant list. And because he couldn't work, his girlfriend, or whatever you want to call her, baby mama, kicked him out. And so he came back to my mom, who's a nurse, and said, I'm dying. Will you take me back? Will you take care of me? I have no one. And my mom said, yes, under the condition that we never talk about this again. And they agreed. And she stuck to her word. She never brought it up again. She loved him as though nothing changed or nothing happened. And he was, my dad ended up being a better father, a better husband. He went to church every single day. Got a transplant. We got to be together for another 13 years before he passed away. And it'll be 20 years next month that he's been passed away. But it's such a beautiful miracle, you know? And that's what I want to bring to couples, is saying, like, if you think there's hope, if you want this bad enough, you can have it. Doesn't matter what you have to overcome. If you love each other enough and you're committed enough, anything is possible.
Yeah, that's interesting because I haven't heard too many stories like that. That's almost like a comeback story, right? Where, you know, you would think that divorce is such a finite or final thing, right? And, you know, you imagine that people don't talk to one another, you know, ever again. You know, the relationship has been severed and, you know, and people are spiteful, they're resentful, kids grow up or they're miserable, they're just angry. And yet, you know, for your specific situation, wow, it kind of turned around. It benefited the entire family unit. I don't know whether you had, you know, you have siblings or not, but it just benefited the entire family unit. And wow, you gained so many more years while he was alive as a cohesive unit. And it just kind of shows you that life in its, mystery and complexity is very, very gray, and nothing is ever black and white. And what a beautiful comeback story. After he passed, I'm curious to know, what your mom really thought, because you said that she didn't want to bring this up again, right? But and I don't know how close you are with your mom, but what were her thoughts afterwards in terms of the second half of her relationship with your dad? Did she held any grudges or anger at the time, or?
Absolutely nothing. It was like, I forgive you. Can we just move on together and just love each other now? It was that simple. And so, I deal with a lot of couples who are dealing with infidelity. And the question often I get is, how can I forgive? I want to, and I can't. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, you can, and there's just something in the way. There's mm-hmm. something that you're not complete with. Maybe what you need is a real apology or real ownership. But we can have again, it's all in our minds. It's whether we can or we can't. We're right about it. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of mm-hmm. what we decide for ourselves. And mm-hmm. my mom is a very, religious and God-fearing woman. And here's the strange thing. And, I don't want to get too into it, but the strange thing was their relationship was so great up until that moment. And there's some different ideas about how that happened. How did it go from really, really great to really, really bad to really, really great? Because it wasn't, most couples, it's kind of a slow decline, right? Mm. And then that's when the cheating happens because they've gone so many years not doing well. But it wasn't like that for my parents. What was said to me was that she drugged him. I don't know how true that is, but I feel like knowing who my dad was, and my dad absolutely adored my mom. She was the queen of the house. Mm-hmm. She was the smart one. She was the, she was the alpha. And my dad was just like, I love you. Just tell me what to do. And so to think that he did something like that, it doesn't quite make sense. But again, when I ask my mom about it, I think that's kind of what she says to me. But I know this kind of sounds weird, but it was not a usual breakup, affair, come back. It was a very unique situation. But I mean, at the end of the day, we all came out of it really great. So like I said, he's been passed away 20 years. And then I met my first husband 2 months later after my dad passed away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh man, we can go on forever. So kind of, segueing to the coaching aspect. Hey guys, this video is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey guys, this is Dr. Colin Zhu, aka the Chef Doc. I just want to take a few moments of your time to talk to you about something that I feel needs to give reflection and pause for. Is there something interfering with your happiness or is preventing you from achieving your goals? I know for me, I've been on the self-work journey for a decade now. And I remember in my personal experiences, through my doctor's journeys and also from traveling the world, I was always searching for the next step or thinking that happiness was a destination. However, it's not. What I found instead was that life was a process. And learning about life was also a process and a practice. And that the state of happiness and the state of joy and contentment was also a practice. For those of you who don't know, since I don't share that much on my podcast, is that I actually battle with anxiety, OCD, and in the past, episodes of depression. However, little by little, step by step, after seeking extra help, I've been able to achieve monumental things in my life that I've been eternally grateful for. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. BetterHelp is a sponsor of this podcast. It's not a crisis line. It's not self-help. It is professional counseling done securely online. There is a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's counselor network, which may not be locally available in many areas. The service is available for clients worldwide. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your counselor. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, so you won't ever have to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room, as with traditional therapy. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so they can make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling, and financial aid is available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. Visit betterhelp.com/thechefdoc, that's better HELP, and join the over 1.4 million people taking charge of their mental state with the help of an experienced professional. Special offer for Thrive Bite listeners. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/thechefdoc. THECHEFDOC. Thank you for listening, guys, and back to the episode. One of the biggest questions that people ask themselves nowadays is, what do I need to do? To really have the right person show up for them, right? Or another way to kind of frame this what prevents people from finding the right person, right? We live in a very noisy, distractful world. I was born before the information social media age. And so being in person and connecting with people was the most beautiful thing. And I'm actually glad that I had those experiences growing up to be able to connect with people in that manner before all this, before the pandemic, before we became so technology, connected, but more in person disconnected, if you will. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think nowadays that, as you're coaching clients, what do you see as a common theme or themes that prevents people from finding the right person for them?
I personally think that we are so afraid to be authentic. We try to be someone we're not, or we try to protect ourselves. And I think being vulnerable and being authentic are two things that we are so afraid of, but yet is the key to finding connection and that juicy, gooey, passionate, all the things that make life just so worth living for. But we're so afraid of rejection that we're not even willing to open our heart, to take the risk. Because you know what? Love and loss go hand in hand. And we're so afraid of loss that we're not even willing to experience. I think about entrepreneurship in the same way. Sure, I could live in my little hole in my, 6-figure job and just keep doing what I'm doing. But where's the joy? Where's the life? Where's the adventure in that? So here I am on this crazy ass roller coaster that does loop-the-loops, and I'm screaming, I'm crying. I'm like, why did I even get on this ride sometimes? But that's what life is about, is for me anyway, is that experience of life. I don't want to die being like, I've never loved. I've never felt what it's like to be so bearing to someone. And they can see right into my soul. And they're like, you know what? You're perfect just the way you are. Even if you don't think so, I do. And so, my husband, the way he looks at me, I don't get it. Personally, he looks at me like I'm, but I really get it's not about this skin bag that I'm in. It's not about that. It's really he connects to who I am deep down. And it's up to me to open that up and allow him in. But I feel like, so many of us, if we've experienced heartbreak, whether it's from our parents and watching them, or we've experienced our own heartbreak, we then make decisions about, no, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to be that vulnerable. I'm never going to let anyone hurt me. And it's just so sad because we miss out on so much when we are so guarded.
Yeah, for sure. And I see this a lot in, professionals, like high level professionals where so many things are demanded. I'm in the health and wellness industry. I'm in the healthcare industry. And, just seeing all these, these high level people, just unable to kind of, in a way, just emote, be human, tap into their humanity, being able to feel and go through the roller coaster rides of emotions. And and I'm also, I know a bunch of colleagues in these high level positions that are also, single, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you would think that someone making six figures, great status in life, has all the material, tangible things, have a lot of things going for them. And yet they feel, just out of their control, where they don't have this control, that, how come I can't find this connection, and how come
Yes.
I can't connect with someone, right? And it
Yes.
goes back to what you're saying, that at the end of the day, I find this to be true in my own personal journey, that has led me to, I guess, practice and allows me to express and create in my professional journey, that I had to connect with myself. I had to dig deep. I had to go through a lot of heartbreak. I had to, be hurt a lot of times. You know what I'm saying? I had to witness other people. I'm also an empath. I'm a Pisces. I just feel a lot of stuff, and I allow myself, it's not easy being a male in this society where, gender norms could be an entirely different topic, but, it's sometimes it's hard for men, to open up, to emote and be vulnerable, like you said, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because, society doesn't allow them to. So.
Absolutely. I love working with men. And I think it's because I've worked with men for so much of my life that I get them. I get them. And I find myself defending men a lot to women, and women always go, well, that's not an excuse. I was like, well, it's not an excuse. And I think what's missing in this world, there's so much what you just said that was so juicy. I want to say two things. I think acceptance is so important. Not only acceptance with our partner and loving them just the way they are, but really it starts with us accepting who we are, accepting our humanity, accepting that we're not perfect. Because when we can do that, then we have so much more space and empathy and compassion for other people. And so oftentimes when people say to me, well, I can't accept my partner just the way they are, my first question is, okay, so what is it over here that you need to do work on for yourself? Where is it that you haven't accepted yourself? And then the tears come. And I think a lot of it comes from control. We so badly, talking about executives and, these high achievers who are so great at business, and they have the cars and the house and everything. And yet there's this part in their heart that's missing. It's because this thing called money or success, they can control it. They feel powerful. They feel like they're in the driver's seat. But when it comes to relationships that are volatile at best, and you're dealing with another human being who's got their own stuff going on, you can't control that. And so we want to stay over here where we can control and try to avoid that. And that's why people who have, relationship issues tend to throw themselves into work when this isn't working. But it just makes things worse.
Because work is something that they can control, and they've learned that they can't control another person, even though, going back to what you're saying, like, I want, them to fix you. But that's control speaking at the end of the day. Right.
Yes.
And what's interesting when you said that, like, how come, the male or this person can't do X, Y, and Z. And then you said, well, what is it about, yourself that you disagree on or you're not happy with, right? Maybe it's a question they haven't really asked themselves. And I find that for the most part, it's really not them talking. It's actually, growing up, their parents have laid down some judgments or expectations, their community, school, cultural, things, that come into play. Do you unpack, those items with them?
Absolutely. So yeah, talking a little bit about my work, one of the things what I do is actually quite unique. First of all, relationship coaching is a fairly new thing. Counseling and therapy has been around for a long time, but, coaching has only been available to the public for just the last, I don't know, 10, maybe 20 years. But one of the unique things that I do is not only I combine life coaching with relationship coaching. So I don't just address the relationship issues that they deal with. I start with the human being, because one of the things I find is a lot of couples who are unhappy, it's because they're not happy with their own life. They hate their job. They have no self-care regimen. They don't have quality time for each other. And so when we can start to really fill their own personal love tank, if you want to call that, then when we go to do the relationship stuff, they're a lot more well-equipped to take on the stuff around the relationship. And of course, it's all around communication. But I find that just dealing with the relationship is only the symptom. It's not the actual cause and reason why they're having the problems.
Yeah. So I would say if it starts with the individual, then that could mean a whole bunch of stuff, right? That could mean like, therapy. That could mean, all different kinds of self-care regimens. That could mean
mommy daddy issues
that ultimately needs time. It needs time. It needs processing. And I would argue, it also needs some time to be single as well, and not being with another person, because I'm sure you've had clients where they are serial monogamers. They just jump from one person to another person to another person, and they've actually haven't had time to be by themselves. And I think there's a lot of value, to be by yourself, for a period of time, right? Some people are okay with that. Some people aren't. I've seen in every single way. I personally have found tremendous value with being in solitude, and what I mean by that is, not actively dating, not actively being in a relationship, things like that, and just being, on your own. And at first, you could experience, periods of loneliness. But, for myself, I was able to travel around the world, humbly speaking, and I realized how important solitude was. I realized how important just being by myself is just tremendous value for me. And for me, it brought a better version of myself to whoever that person is that I'm dating or going to meet, et cetera, et cetera. And this doesn't even have to be romantically. This could be applied towards platonic work relationships, business relationships, any kind of relationship at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great point, because I think oftentimes when we go into relationships, we lose ourselves. If we don't have a strong basis and a strong relationship with who we are, it's so easy to get caught up, or, when people say things like, "Oh, they made me feel," they made me toxic, or they kind of put the responsibility over with other people. But if you are good with who you are, and what you're willing to put up, I don't want to say put up with, but what your standards are, what your expectations are, you can communicate that to people in a loving way and create boundaries so that you don't put yourself in these situations where you end up in a really unhealthy, toxic, lonely relationship, right? And I think also is like making sure that your energy is right. Oftentimes we're so, when we're single, we're so needy. It's like, I just want to be loved. And someone needs to make me happy. But it's like, no, you got to make yourself happy. And that energy that you put out in the world, that will attract the right person who says, wow, who is that has that amazing energy? And then you can choose whether or not you want to bring them in or not.
Yeah, I would, I guess one of the questions, that I had is, for people that are single, that go through that, I just want to be loved, or how come no one's with me and stuff like that. Do you say to them like, hey, obviously everyone's going to be an individual, answer, but do you say to them like, hey, we need the time and the process and the space to kind of show up and love and care for yourself first before you start attracting, is there like, quote unquote, a set of like homework or action steps or prescription, so to speak, for them to kind of go through that? Or do you just kind of work with them in terms of like, okay, let's find you Mr. or Miss, X, Y, and Z and start working? Like how do you deal with a single person?
Yeah. Well, first, I don't deal with single people. I only deal with married people.
Okay.
However, my best friend is single, and so we're always having this conversation. I think the first place I would start is, what are your goals? What is it that you want for yourself and your life? Money, health, all of that. Because when you can have all those pieces in an integrity, right, then you can be really integrous with who you are, your values and your beliefs. And I think a lot of people don't really think about what their values and beliefs are. So I think, for me, I'm a big journaler. I like making lists. I like getting clarity on like, okay, what is it that I want? Where do I see is in the way of that? How do I get support with that? And then, again, like, what are the beliefs and values that I have, so that, whether it's a friend, like a colleague, or it's a romantic partner you're trying to attract, you are clear about who you are and who you want in your life, and who you don't.
Yeah. I think being clear, being in alignment, really resonated with me, and it's true, because there's different types of I would say pillars. People when they're younger, they have career goals, profession goals, school goals, right? You're starting off, with different things. And being in alignment is such key, because if you, in a way, energetically speaking, to me, it's like if you don't have certain things aligned that you deem as priority, then you kind of, if you do get in a relationship, it almost seems like you'll be, kind of lacking certain energies that you're going to try to get from that relationship, right? And it's kind of, misdirected, so to speak. So is that what you meant about being in alignment with certain aspects of your life?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Being that your audience is more marriage, and obviously this could be a very long episode, but a lot of people, a common thing is missing the spark, in a very long-term, relationship or marriage, right? So you're on your 10-year, anniversary, right? How, to me, I've never been married, so I can't really speak on it. But a lot of things that I hear about is consistency, right? You're with the same person day in and day out, right? For weeks, months, years, and for some people, decades, right? So in some way, shape, or form, I kind of feel like consistency, is important in some way, shape, or fashion. You can agree or disagree, but what needs to be maintained in order for that spark to kind of continue, or is that spark the same, or does it change into a different spark later on?
There's so many layers to this. So, the one thing I would say is a lot of it is mindset, right? I think sometimes especially because we aren't great at communicating for the most part, we start to make up stories, or sometimes, one of the partners will shut down, what we call stonewall, or go through an emotional flooding, where they just kind of emotionally shut down. And then the other person starts to make up what's actually happening. They're like, oh, they don't love me anymore. Oh, they're rejecting me, or they, these things. And we just start to get caught up in all the worry and the paranoia. And what we don't realize is whatever your partner is going on emotionally has nothing to do with you. And I think oftentimes we make it our job to fix the other person. Oh, they're in pain. Oh, I got to go save them. No. You don't. You just got to be their best friend. You just got to listen and be like, oh man, that sucks. I'm so sorry that you had a bad day today. I'm sorry that person yelled at you. I'm sorry you're tired. Whatever that is. But I think oftentimes we go, well, what do you want me to do about it? Why is it my fault? Why are you yelling at me? When really this person really just wants to be heard. And this is, before we'd say, oh, this is women, but I think men just as much want to feel heard and valued and appreciated and just acknowledge and for someone to say, you know what? It's okay. It's okay that you don't feel 100% today. It's okay that you're emotional. I gotcha. Everything's going to be fine. I think that's what's missing for a lot of people. As far as consistency, absolutely. Me and my husband, so we've been together 15 years in total. And everything that we did since day one are the exact same things that we do today. We still text each other, I love you, when we're not together. We still say, I love you at least 3 times before we go to bed. We still dance around the kitchen and be silly. We still, make date night happen. We still have the same amount. Actually, we have more sex now, now that I think about it. But it's always like, I think, talking about my first marriage, that was what was missing, to be honest, was the consistency. It was almost like as soon as we got married, it was almost like he said, I'm done, check mark, got married. And then everything just fell away. And so everything that
there was no keeping up with it. There was no keeping up with it.
Not at all. It was like I was married to someone that I didn't know. And it was very devastating because I thought I knew who I was marrying. And it was just kind of like, it was the flyer. I was in love with the idea. The
concept. Yeah.
The concept and the promises, but not the person who was actually willing to do the things that I felt I needed from a relationship. And I think another thing is communication. Communication is so important. And the problem with this, the epidemic I see, is that people think that they communicate well and they actually don't. And they go, oh, I can communicate. I can be honest. I said, well, that's not communication. That's talking. That's not communicating. If you're interrupting, right? If you're interrupting, if you're judging, if you're comparing, if you're getting defensive, if you're reacting, that is not communication. You're like shut down. You're not actually with the other person. And this is something that I teach every single of my clients. And that's why I get them the results so quickly, because they realize that there's nothing wrong with the relationship. They just don't have the skills. And society hasn't taught us how to listen to one another to understand. We've only been taught to listen, to respond.
Active listening. Yeah.
And then there's the domination game. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's good? Who's bad? Add that all up. No wonder our divorce rates are what it's at. So that's why I'm so passionate about this work.
Yeah, I think I don't see it as a tug of war, in my opinion. I see it as when I was growing up, one of my favorite, days of the year was field day. And that was, at the end of the year, it's a giant, obstacle course and your class just participates. That was field day. And one of my favorite, games growing up, and this is an analogy I'm going to apply, is the potato sack game, where, you and your partner, you both have one leg into a potato sack and you try to figure out how to walk across a field, together. So to me, it's almost like instead of a tug of war, which is also another game, it's the potato sack game, right? Where you figure out how to work with your partner. You realize that you can't do it by yourself. You have to do it with the other person. And, how do I take my individual nuances? How do I take him or hers individual nuances? And, bring us to the opposite side, which is not to say that we're supposed to, go to a finish line, but you know what I mean?
Well, that's like, I like to call it Pleasure Island or Love Island, right? Like to the place where you want, whatever that destination looks like. And for most people just want to be happy. People just want partnership. People want a best friend that they can have and experience life with, all the ups and downs. That's what we want.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Sure. Yeah. Because life, pandemic has definitely showed us, it's a crazy journey. Life is precious, very fragile. And, relationships, we talk a lot about food and nutrition on this podcast, but, I've said it many times, is that relationships, that is backed by science, that, it is the biggest predictor of health and longevity. So it's super, super important that we get our relationships, right. And so I want to close this out. We can go on forever. You have a very poignant statement on your website. And I think this is a good way to kind of end this, is I am responsible for the condition of my relationship and for my behavior, quote, end quote. What does that mean? And, what does that mean? And how can we use that to better learn things for ourselves and better learn and apply that for the relationship?
Well, I'd like to start by just, clarifying what I mean. The definition of responsibility is the ability to respond. So when we're in a place of disempowerment or blame or victimhood or complaining, right? It's all kind of the same bowl of wax. There's nothing we can do about it because we have it that the problem is outside of us, that we don't have power, that it's over there with the other person. But when we can be responsible and say, yeah, you know what? There was something that I've done to upset my partner, and which is why they're shutting down. What have I done, or what could I do to impact the situation so that we can get back on track, rather than leaving it to the other person and being, well, our relationship is the way it is because you did that or you didn't do that, and here I am being holy and mighty. And what I like to point to is that, sure, we can think that way, right? We can think that the problem is out there, and a lot of people do that. And then what they do is they get divorced and they move on to the next relationship. But, at the end of the day, if we can't take responsibility for ourselves and how we've impacted people, for example, sorry, just jumping here. It's like building a fire, right? It's like, there needs to be gasoline. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Might want to edit this.
We need a flamethrower. We need lots of wood. We need more forest fires. No,
well, it's like it's like the gun, that gun analogy, right? Like the gun itself isn't dangerous. It's when you put bullets in it and there's someone that needs to fire it. And so oftentimes people go, well, it's the gun is the problem. Well, no, it's not. And oftentimes people don't want to take responsibility for having the gun, for shooting it. They're just, it's the gun's problem. Does that make sense?
So in terms of applying it to the relationship aspect, it's the user at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You're trying to say it's a user, right?
Well, it's if our partner is upset, and if we've said something to upset our partner, we need to take responsibility for us upsetting the partner. Because all we want to focus on is, why are you upset with me? And why are you acting that way? It's like, hold on, let's take a step back. What did I say? And where do I need to apologize? Where do I need to take responsibility? And sometimes, I think one of the great things that me and my husband do really well is we're really great at taking responsibility, even when it's not even ours to take. But it really just adds to the power of our relationship moving forward, because we're both in it to win it without trying to take credit for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In a way, it kind of, again, I think of it as like, instead of the ping pong match between each other or the tug of war, where it's almost like you have two different individuals trying to make it work, as opposed to both partners looking at it as a unit and say, whether it's your fault or my fault, let's just move on. Let's figure out how we can solve the problem together and continue to move on. That's what it sounds like to me, because it's more conducive. It's more productive at the end of the day. It's less heartache. Yeah. It's less time wasted, in terms of, he said, the blame game, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone wins at the end of the day, because as much as, let's just say, you're not wrong, but you're blaming someone else, at the end of the day, I feel that, you're still suffering at the end of the day, because finger pointing, there's no fun in finger pointing, I think there's more fun in problem solving, as a group, as a team.
Yeah. Pride and ego is so dangerous when it comes to relationships. I actually ran into a friend of mine who'd been married for, I think, 10 years, and I hadn't seen her for 10 years. And when I saw her, and she told me that she had gotten divorced, and I said, I'm just curious, why? And that's the two words she said to me: pride and ego. And I think that's kind of what you're pointing at, is sometimes we would rather not look bad than actually own up to our stuff. We don't ever want to admit we're wrong. We don't ever want to admit that, we're human and make mistakes. We just want to point the finger. And, I think apology and forgiveness is so important. And it's something that we don't talk about enough is that we do need to ask for forgiveness. And it's not just I'm sorry. It's like, really, like, I'm so sorry that I let you down. I said I was going to go do that thing and I didn't do it. And now you're disappointed in me. And now there's this impact on you. And really just that power of like being vulnerable, opening your heart and saying, listen, I messed up. And I got that I hurt you. And I'm so sorry. Versus, well, I said I was sorry. What more do you want from me? Right? That's not actually taking responsibility. And I think a lot of people are afraid. Because here's the thing. When you ask for forgiveness, it's scary. Because when you say, will you forgive me? Which sometimes is what's required, there's a chance of rejection. And so people won't even ask for forgiveness when sometimes that's all it takes for someone to finally trust you again. So it's back to being vulnerable again.
Which circles back to your mom and dad. So so we'll close it right there. We can go forever. So I love this conversation. Thank you so much for spending the time out of your vacation. I don't want to take any more of your time, but if people are interested and curious and want to learn more, want to see how they can schedule an appointment, have you as their coach, etc., where can they go?
Right. So right now I have my website is www.saveourmarriage.ca. I also do life coaching as well, but that's the website that I have right now. So they can just reach out to me from that site. Okay,
great. And we'll have it on the show notes when it airs. So thank you so much. Again, it's been a pleasure. It's been a wonderful conversation. I'm glad that we hit a lot of big points for people. And yes, please enjoy the rest. And thank you so much. So thank you for showing up and doing what you do.
Thank you, Colin. I appreciate you, and I thank you so much for this great conversation. I really hope that it was helpful to your listeners. And that that they get something out of this conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I'm very grateful, and I know that they will as well. So, guys, thank you so much for watching another episode of Thrive Bites. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you felt like this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And until then, please say goodbye to Jeanell. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that episode. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you like this, please like, follow, and subscribe. And please follow us for the latest updates for this season 5. And if you feel that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and YouTube. And thank you so much again. And we will see you on the next one.